Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to present our work to you, which is entitled A Second-Order Adaptive Network Model for Exam-Related Anxiety Regulation. So this work was done by Isabel, Agnieszka, myself, and Yang Tuo. And our work is firstly to get a little bit into the exam anxiety, which is defined in the psychological literature as a side of different responses that accompanies the concern someone might have about positive, negative evaluation or loss of competence while performing an exam or other evaluation system. So in general, it is perceived that the anxiety has positive motivating consequences, but only when experienced in moderate amounts. Because once this emotion becomes too strong and overwhelming, it can bring a lot of adverse effects, such as, for example, the loss of sleep, the inability to concentrate it, or some headaches. And all these negative consequences may actually significantly hamper individuals' performance during the evaluation situation. So the solution that the literature stressed for this sort of problem is that employing emotion regulation strategies, which are, as their name indicates, the strategies or even abilities to effectively control what emotions we experience and when and how we express them. So now let me tell you a bit more about the context and motivation of our work. Our starting point was noticing how the exam anxiety process changed recently due to the switch from the offline examination mode to mainly the online exams. And why we argue they changed is because there are new mental states that now contribute to the anxiety. For example, students might worry about like potential network problems or technical issues with the examination system. However, like the certain problems are also not present in the online settings. For example, the social anxiety related to the interactions with colleagues in examination room. All of this led us to the idea of comparing the exam anxiety between two exam contexts, online and offline. Moreover, we decided to study the role that emotion regulation strategies have in modifying exam anxiety and to employ the adaptive modeling approach. So based on our knowledge about the exam anxiety, as mentioned before, now we could think about how to design the states of this network model. So first of all, we have two states that represent the modality of the exams, the online exam and the offline exams. And after this, we think about the issues of the problems or the concerns that might happen. And we categorize them into two big groups, the before exam issues and the during exam issues. For example, before the exam, students might need to check the materials or technical tools. They might worry about whether the environment would be quite comfortable enough for the exam. And also during the exam, they might like affected by the internet or system problems and so on. And all those issues that are summarized based on Alcott and Karakus research, a very conducted survey that report the views and difficulties that students have during online exam modalities. Then we introduce the four filling preparation states representing students' expectations and certain psychological indicators. And finally, all this leads to the anxiety level of the exam. As we would like to stimulate the emotion regulation, so we added some control states as well as the opposite beliefs. And also to introduce the behavior learning process, we also add corresponding W states and H states, which we will later on introduce a bit. So here comes the design of the multi-layer network model, which is built based on Thor's adaptive network modeling approach. And we can see in the base level, just like we discussed before, we have two states representing the online and offline exams, which means that if we are on the online exam setting, this state would be a constant 1 and the other state would be a constant 0. And following like the line of states here are the issues that happens before during the exams. What's important here are the two pairs of the opposite beliefs for introducing the emotion regulation. One is about the belief of stable and comfortable environment, and the other one is about the type of questions. And we can see the like dark red circles here. And then we have 4 states, which is called filling preparation states by us, and then finally the exam anxiety level states. And the blue and purple layers here are the first and second verification layers that we're using for the behavior learning process. And so the W states here are representing the value of connection weights between the 2 states in the base level. And the H states are actually the value of the speed factor for W state. So by this, we can now control the learning process for the network. So here comes our stimulation results. And first of all, we do the simulation under the setting of online exams. And so, which means that the online exam, the value for the online exam states will always be activated as 1. And for the offline exam will always be 0. So here we can observe the first reappraisal, where we can see that at the very first beginning, like the negative beliefs will increase, and also the which is very normal because the students might feel very confident about their current environment, but which will lead to the increasing of the exam anxiety. After the increasing of exam anxiety, the control state for environments will also increasing, which will then decrease the negative belief for the environment and also increase the belief for positive environment. And we can interpret it as the students can have this kind of thinking that think about their personal space, for example, their bedrooms is much more comfortable than the classroom, so which will make them feel less anxiety about the exams. And also then we can see the second reprisal occurring, that we can see that while the exam anxiety is raising, the control states for the type of questions is also raising. Therefore, the negative beliefs are decreasing and the positive beliefs are increasing. So perhaps that the students, like during the exams, will feel like this type of question, while they're new, but I can handle it. So which will help them to decrease a bit about the anxiety. Just like we said, it is the second order adaptive network. So we can see the W states and the H states here. And just with the processing, they're increasing and control the whole system. And now we can see the second stimulation, which is on the offline exam setting. And here we can see that the online exam states are always 0, and the offline exam states are always 1. And here that we can see, first of all, the overall exam anxiety is much lower than the online exams. But also some of states are with higher levels. For example, like the states about worrying about being late due to a transport. But also there's some of the states which might not happen during the offline exam, so they're always 0. So which leads to the results that the reprisal process for the first stage does not happen. And also for the second reprisal, because the exam anxiety is not that high, so we can see that the control states for the type of questions are quite low. They're just too slow to grow, so they do not help with the negative beliefs and the positive beliefs here. We can, that result is also very reasonable because we can think about that the students are quite used to this type of questions as they're doing the offline exams all the time. And since the students do not need to learn how to regulate their anxiety, so we can also see like both the W state and H states are quite low. And we also do the experiment on the highly anxious person, because for people who are prone to get anxious, challenges like exams will easily affect their anxiety levels. So we want to see what the mental states will be changed during the exam setting and how we can help this kind of people with these highly anxious issues. So we can see through this stimulation that first of all, their exam anxiety are really, really high, though it has been regulated a bit, but it is really, really slight. And compared to the average, compared to the people with the average anxiety level, their exam anxiety level also raised a bit quickly. And that is because that the control states here stay at quite a low value. And the same situation also happens for the offline exam setting, where that just as the previous stimulation, the anxiety level for the offline exams are a little bit lower than the online exam because people are more used to this kind of exam set. But still, like the control states is not work as good as before. So this result actually match our expectations, since it is of like great difficulties for people who are prone to get anxious to regulate their anxiety. And also their speed of getting anxious and the degree of anxiety that they ultimately reach is higher than those of the healthy people here. So the assistance for people with highly anxiety disorders should focus on the practice and guidance for anxiety regulation strategies in learning setting. Here we have some conclusions for our work. Although we do not have any empirical data to turn on our results, our theoretical simulation confirms that we expected would be happened, and now we briefly sum it up here. First of all, the emotion regulation process worked as stated. So first, we observed some decline in positive beliefs when anxiety kicks in, but the control states get stronger, and then positive beliefs get stronger, and the negative ones get weaker. Also, we observed that in all stimulations, pre-exam state changed together, and during exam state changed together too. And the states which could be prevalent in online contests, for example, the issues with receiving assistance when needed, rise to higher values than in the offline one, and the other way around. And we can also see that the anxiety levels are higher in online exams than offline exams. We can also see that the adaptive models also show desired behavior, meaning that adding adaptive layers make the states affected by the adaptation develop slower, but in the end, the levels at which they stabilize are very similar to those reached without adaptation. And for the highly anxiety person, we also found that, as expected, reprisal process have limited utility for people who have already suffered a lot from the high general anxiety levels. As their exam anxiety levels increase more, the appraisal process cannot help enough with reducing the anxiety. And that's it for the presentation, and thank you so much for the attention. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer that.